Welcome to Caribbean Sleep Stories. If you're in bed and you're trying to sleep, this is the channel where you can find folklore stories from the Caribbean. So I'll keep the intro short so you can start drifting into sleep. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Today's story is about La Diablesse. Selwyn had walked the ridge road more nights than he could count. He'd ran from the last house in the village past his aunt's place, the house with the low fence and the mango tree that dropped fruit all throughout the wet season. And it continued up along the spine of the hill and down the other side toward home. He knew every bend of it, the way you know the feel of your own hands. He knew where the road dipped and caught rainwater after a storm. He knew where the bamboo leaned in close enough to brush your shoulder if you didn't duck. He knew too the old warning his grandmother used to give him, the same one she gave every child in the family before they were old enough to walk the road alone at night. If you ever hear a woman singing out there, she would say, and you don't know where the voice is coming from, ignore it. Don't go looking for her. He was 31 years old that night, walking home slowly because the visit with his aunt had run long and the food had been good and the rum even better. He remembered the warning right then, but he decided it was an old wives' tale, and he walked on. The moon was three-quarters full, and it lit up the road enough to be able to see without a torch. The crickets were going steady, the way they always did. A sound so constant it stopped being a sound at all after a while and became part of the texture of silence. He was almost at the second bend when he heard her. It wasn't loud. That was the first strange thing about it, though he didn't know yet to call it strange. A voice, low and unhurried, carrying a tune he didn't recognize, coming from somewhere ahead of him on the road, past where the bamboo grew thick enough to hide a person standing still. He kept walking. There was nothing else to do. The road only went one way, forward, and turning around would have meant walking back the same distance he'd already covered, past his aunt's dark house, back into the village to knock on a door and wake someone for no better reason than a song. The tune got closer without seeming to move. That was the second strange thing, though again he didn't notice it as strange until much later when he would lie awake at night mulling over this very night. She was standing just past the bend, a woman in a long dress, the color hard to place in the moonlight. Maybe red, maybe something darker that only looked red when the clouds thinned and let more light through. She wore a wide hat, the brim low enough that he could not see much past her chin. Her voice didn't stop when he came into view. She kept singing, soft, like she was singing to herself and simply didn't mind if he also heard. He said goodnight to her the way you say goodnight to a stranger on a dark road, mostly out of the manners his mother raised into him and partly because saying nothing felt worse. She turned, unhurried, and began walking ahead of him up the incline, still singing. He told himself later that he only meant to walk behind her until the road forked, since they were both headed in the same direction anyway. And yeah, that was true enough as far as it went. What he didn't tell himself was that some part of him had already decided to follow her regardless of where the road went. He decided that without really deciding it. The decision was already made somewhere below the part of his mind that used words to guide him. They walked a long while like that. The incline should have tired her the way it always tired him, should have fastened her breathing. made her stumble once on the loose stones near the top where the road always crumbled a little more each rainy season. But it didn't. She moved as if the climb wasn't even there, and then downhill like water, easy as if she had made a deal with the road. He noticed that. He noticed all of it and set it aside. It was a small worry, while a bigger, sweeter thing was asking for his attention instead. Because the singing had gotten no louder, but had gotten somehow nearer, closer to his ear than the distance between them should have allowed. And there was a smell now, too. Something sweet, flowers maybe, or fruit going soft in the heat. Pleasant at first and less pleasant the longer he breathed it in, though he couldn't have said exactly when that shift happened either. The road at the top of the ridge was one he'd walked 1,000 times. He knew where it should bend left, down toward the standpipe and the first fence post of the village below his own. It didn't bend left. It kept going straight into trees that really had no business being there, into a dark that really had no business being so dark. He didn't run. He wants people to understand that. Whenever he tells it now, years later, on his own porch to his own children, the way his grandmother once told him. He didn't run because running never once crossed his mind as a thing available to him. He only kept walking, his legs feeling like they somehow belonged to someone else and that someone else had already decided where he was going. It was near the end of it, when the trees had thinned again and a strange wrong quiet had replaced the crickets. That's when he looked down. He would say later that he didn't understand what he was looking at, not right away, that his mind simply declined to finish the thought for a moment, as a mind sometimes refuses a fact it's just not ready to hold. The hem of her dress had lifted slightly from a wind he couldn't feel anywhere else. And where her foot should have been, where a foot had always been on every woman he had ever walked behind, on every road he had ever known, there was something else instead. Not a foot, but was that a hoof? It was split down the middle, it had no shoes, and it was dark. He doesn't remember deciding to stop walking. He only remembers that he had stopped and that she had not, that she went on ahead of him into the trees with her tune still trailing behind her, fainter now and fainter again until the crickets came back one at a time, first one, then a few, then all of them at once, the way they always sounded on any ordinary night on that road. He found his way home some hours after he should have. His shirt was inside out, though he had no memory of taking it off or putting it back on that way. His grandmother, when he told her later, only nodded slowly and said the thing she had always said. Some roads you only walk with company. Whenever he told the story in later years, he made the same point first before anything else. He did not run. What he didn't share were the many questions he had. Why had she let him go? That was the main one. But he knew he would never get an answer, so over time, he let that question go. He walked the ridge road again after that, of course. There was no other road that went where he needed to go, and a man cannot simply stop living in the village he was born in over one strange night. But he did stop walking it after dark alone. Not out of fear exactly, more the way you stop leaving a door unlocked after learning what can come through it. If he had to pass that way at night, he went with his brother or with whoever else happened to be heading in the same direction, and if no one was heading his way, he waited. The road itself went back to being ordinary, mostly. The bamboo still leaned in at the same bend, and the standpipe still marked the place where the road finally curved down toward home. Children still ran up and down in the daylight without a thought in their heads about anything but where they were going. He watched them sometimes from his porch as he got older, and he never once told them to be afraid of the road itself, only of what might be waiting on it on certain nights for a man walking alone. He got married, he had children of his own, and then grandchildren. And on quiet evenings, when the visiting was done and the young ones were drowsy enough to sit still and listen, he would tell it to them the way his grandmother had told it to him, slow, without much embellishment, ending it always the same way. Some roads, he would say, you only walk with company.